All right, I'm here with my personal trainer,
Your
my
personal
my
trainer.
INTJ
Work it.
mastermind personal
Work
trainer.
it. Work it. Is it worth it? Let me search it. I put my thing down, flip it, and reverse it.
Oh, you're a rapper now.
No, no, I'm
You're like
just a
you're like
dancer.
Eric. You're like Eric Strauss.
I'm kind of like Eric Strauss. Eric
Hmm.
Strauss did a stream one time where he wanted to rap for 24 hours to set a record, and
Oh
then
my
he
god.
made it like 3 or 4 hours, and he was like, "Yeah, my throat's dry, my mouth is dry, I'm done." Hey, hey, you could have predicted that, but whatever.
Half of it is just like you can't mess with me. ENTP. Like fucking, they're half
An
rhymes
E
basically.
and P P.
No, I can't. I
We're
can't
here
knock him.
for
He's
it.
actually like really good. He's good at rhyming.
Yeah, yeah.
He can. He's. I
I'm
mean,
looking
some of that's
forward.
like, basically the more vocabulary you have, the more.
Oh, you mean just as a rapper? He's actually pretty decent. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. He can.
better than I am for certain.
I think
Like
if I
I
I
can't.
think if I I think if I read more, I would get better at rhyming. But I've never read a book in my life.
I think
So
I'm good at rhyming. Like I'm good at delivering. I'm not good at on the spot. Um, like I can't freestyle. I don't have the ability to just let it fly. I've actually heard that they're like, uh, one time Peter was talking to me about like your something about I don't remember what the mechanism was he was suggesting, but something about your ability or lack thereof to have the filter come off and just let whatever comes to mind
that's the
flow
other
out.
factor. Is not everyone's like, some people might have the same ability Eric has, but they're not necessarily comfortable like just removing all filter in front of an audience, which is something that I
Well,
think has to be.
I end up getting caught on like, is that quality or not? Because I'm not just gonna spew out whatever. I get fixated on like, hold on, I wanna make it good. I wanna make it like it's got a
Yeah,
rhyme. Or it doesn't even necessarily have to rhyme. Like it can be rhythmic in the sense that like parts of the word can rhyme with other parts of the word. The end of the word, it doesn't need to match at the end. You can say things emphatically in a way that like a percussive manner that you know gets the job done. You don't it doesn't you know what I mean? But yeah.
we got to talk about we got to talk about we got to talk about duality
I want to talk about duality.
and why
We're here
it's
with
it's
alleged
dumb
duels.
and gay.
Alleged duels.
But
Yeah. No.
no, I'm just
The
joking. But
reason that
here's the
we
thing.
know
I don't
about
actually.
duality.
Hold on. Let me just say one thing. What I would say is it's an interesting starting point to. I don't know if you see socionics this way, but in some sense, it's basically like operating from. It's almost like a map of communication, essentially. Like
Yeah.
I don't think they're really trying like in the same way maybe Jung was trying to map the psyche, as much as it's more sort of externalized as like a, not sociology, but you get why it's called socionics. Like there's like
Yeah. I
basically
mean,
like,
right.
how do these
At
different
its
parts interact? How do these different people
at its
interact?
creation, Augusta was not trying to make any kind of alternative to what Jung was making. All she was doing was making a system that was partially inspired by this concept that Jung had started, and also by this other concept that oh, what's fuck face? Whatever the information metabolism. This is the guy's fucking name. Kapinski.
Uh, what's his name?
Kapinski.
Pinsky.
Yeah. It's not a like I've already talked about this before. I think that basically I think that Jung and Enneagram are mapping to some extent, though I think that Jung does it with more rules. Um, basically the same kind of fixational stuff. And when it comes to socionics, um, it's information metabolism. So it I think more than anything is all about communication and the way that you take in information, the way that you deliver information. So with that in mind, like you have the function set up in such a way um, by the rules of the construction of the theory that basically necessitate that regardless of someone's capability in something or regardless of something's fixation in something, which is exactly why there are subtypes. Um, regardless, and there are all sorts of different subtype. Augusta herself had her own subtyping thing. Like it's
Well,
different
yeah,
to like the
you need
DCNH
some
shit.
way to explain variation within a type because there's only 16, and if you put everyone in, one category, you call 20 different people ILI, for example, like you're gonna need probably some way, whether it's a soft way or a hard way, to explain the variance within that category.
Well, it's not even a matter of variance. It's just at that
Well, I mean, it is.
variance is assumed. Like it's only you have this whole dynamic thing, which is the person, and this like tiny little nipple on the tit over here is socionics type, is a sociotype.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I
And
I
then over
basically
here
I
are
basically agree,
other
I
quote
basically
unquote
agree with that
types.
to an extent.
Like,
I do think,
I think that Enneagram and socionics are mapping strictly different things, basically. Though they end up overlapping, I think they're
yeah, yeah.
mapping different things. They're mapping different causes, mapping different mechanisms.
If you I think if you run with this idea of how a person metabolizes information, you would probably arrive at some implied like potential for different problem areas or neuroses. I mean,
Yeah,
you can say like how,
potentially, yeah.
like, obviously there's a lot of variables going into that, but yeah, I mean, I think it would probably be
Especially
implied
with the
depending
polar.
on how you're defining everything as well.
Like especially with the polar, if you have a function that's inherently one that the person is stubborn about, and also one that they don't want to take information from other sources, and one that they can only learn information in like one way, and one that they like they otherwise, again, like I said, they're stubborn about, they otherwise think that they're the master of that information. They won't take it from other people. It's only natural that if you take that and then make it a thematic thing that that person has to deal with, like this goes into the free will thing of uh, by whatever amount of quote unquote free will that humans actually have, the universe is massive, and the amount of influence that one actor has on its reality outside of it is so limited to, in comparison, the scope and scale of what the universe or quote unquote God will put on the person. That being the case, if you put all of those scenarios for the person to have whatever put on them, they're going to end up getting stuck with that. They're stubborn about this thing, and life keeps handing it to them.
Yeah.
So that would, in theory, yeah, lead someone down the line of being in the right place and time to have whatever kind of neuroses that they might have. And I think that if the person has a sociotype and an enneatype, then the person is likely to respond to that uh, with whatever the defense mechanism they have, or whatever fixational pattern they have.
Okay, so where are you then drawing the line where you go, okay, Enneagram's going to touch on these other things that goes out of those bounds?
Um,
I mean, obviously it's organized differently on one level. Like you have 9 versus 16. So on a mathematical level, you're going to have to find a way to where more than just one of the 16 fits into one of these 9 categories just as a matter of math, or could fit into that. So that would sort of naturally imply that you wouldn't have this like one-to-one relationship with like a given let's say leading well, yeah, anyways.
well, I mean, aside from mathematics, I think that, um, and I've heard before the suggestion that, and I agree with the suggestion that someone who is unhealthy will probably pan out more like their enneatype. Because what, like, when people talk about enneatype, basically like the only thing that people are actually generally thinking about when they think of Enneagram is unhealthy manifestations of Enneagram. Otherwise, people usually put out pretty typically.
Okay, so basically, the Enneagram type, if you're unhealthy, that would sort of override in terms of, I guess, the major sort of thematic points around a person, if you were to sort of make a narrative archetype of that person.
No, I mean basically. Yeah, I
Like
mean like
that's what
it's
it
a
sounds
defense
like to me.
mechanism. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
otherwise a thing that like okay, your whatever Bill is normally like, whatever George is normally like, um, you then put them in X scenario and they just start getting reactive all of a sudden. Well, they're an eight, but otherwise they're usually cooperative. Like it gets tricky with Enneagram because like there are different um I mean there are different triads and whatnot. Like there's the Hornevian groups, there are the harmonic groups. And so otherwise one might look at a type and go, well, these types are cooperative. Well, anyone who otherwise has no reason to be uncooperative is cooperative. But the typified pattern of a type is that they will like cooperative types have a tendency to cooperate in neurosis. Like the point of like a six is that their uh, their way of fighting back is somehow a way of rebounding and making friends with you, which is bizarre.
Is that specific to just, is that six overall or a specific variant like social, self-pres, SX?
Um, I'm pretty sure it's just typical overall. Although I do think that it would be more flavored depending on the
Wait,
instinct.
you said
Like
their way of getting back at you is like, go through it again.
there, the defense mechanism of six is one that's inherently attached. So Enneagram six does this weird thing that's basically unique to people who have a lot of six fixation, which is that they they like you know how they talk about, and this was always weird to me. You know how they always talk about like the bully that like you fight them and now they want to be friends with you.
Yeah, I think.
Um, I think it's something like that, basically. Though I can't say to
You're,
the
is this like
particular
a,
bully or whatever that whatever.
is this connected
What's
to
that?
like the security seeking or something? Like as in
Yeah.
they don't want to eliminate, they don't want to completely burn a bridge. Is that the idea?
Um, maybe I don't know about
Why
that.
would they? Why would they want to maintain that relationship if it's not for like something connected to the neurosis of
Good
security seeking?
question. Good question.
It must be.
I mean
It must be.
that's what the speculated thing is. That's what they're
If it's a
saying. They're
fear,
saying
if
that
it's a fear-based
there's a
type,
fear of
if it's a
what's that?
fear-based type, well, if it's a fear-based neurosis, then it must be connected to that
All
fear.
neuroses are in Enneagram, all the neuroses are fear
Right, but
based.
this, but the six is like very specifically about security
Yeah.
and
Well, I mean,
potentially,
all of the
potentially
head
when it comes,
types are about security.
and when it comes to, well, specifically here, it seems to be in relation to, well, relationships basically.
It's in that's the thing with six is that it tends to be in relation to people. So like there's a strength in numbers mindset with six of like, okay, it depends upon how you are. How are you right now? What are you telling me right now? Because like I've checked back with you before and you said this, but now I'm asking you this and you said this. So now I don't know if we're friends anymore, kind of shit. Which and also the other way around where like people are weird, man. Like I don't know, like people who otherwise they're like, okay, you should know that you shouldn't trust that person. Okay, we're buddies now. What the fuck are you doing? I don't know if it's the same for all of them. It might be different for social or self-pres.
Hmm. You're saying that they will be friends with people that they ought not trust?
Yeah. And that's
Okay.
weird because they're like the ones that are most privy to and most fixated on that they do or don't trust people, yet somehow they rope people back in. It's weird.
I guess perhaps they feel like because they understand that they can't trust them, that they're the one person who can get close to that person without actually being negatively affected because they're so aware of how that person might be problematic because they're a head type, whatever.
Say that again?
They might be it might be a case where like because they understand that they are so aware of or they're so paranoid, it's like they can get close to it because they're constantly looking at that anyways. As in they have more of a safety shield maybe
Oh,
because they
okay.
already are mistrustful
Okay.
anyways. So just
Right.
because they're getting close to this mistrustful character doesn't mean that they aren't continually paranoid anyways.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like
This is
they
why
know
I think that I'm
they know they're not
five.
gonna let their guard down. So it's like
It's why that I think that I'm five because I look at that kind of shit. Like there are people that are like, well, I'm already filtering for information anyways, and I'm um I'm distrustful of this person, but I know I'm 3 steps ahead. So I can let them back in. Anytime I can let them back in for whatever reason. And well, maybe it will benefit me, but maybe not. But I know to have my guard up again or whatever in a way that I'm like, this is a lot of brain power for
they're playing
something
with
so just fucked. I don't like people enough to have it be worth this much. I don't like people enough for this to be just stop, just go away.
I guess
Stop,
they're
just
playing
go
with
away.
fire,
Just
so
go
to speak.
away. Kind of, I guess. Something something about something about connection to people like seed planting is a thing in general when it comes to type and fixation. But there's something about the six's relation. Six is an interesting one, but like something about their relationship to um, people, managing people, aligning with people, moving away from people, like knee jerky. It's interesting stuff.
What do you think is the value of modeling intertype compatibility in socionics?
Oh, the value of it?
Yes.
Uh,
Like, wouldn't it be better off just to play out like sort of naturally, like, okay, I get along with this person, I don't get along with that person, like just let it. Like, what would be the point of preemptively modeling it?
the response that I have is that to the same. When you're in this game for long enough, why model any of this shit? Um,
Yeah, I mean,
a
I understand.
specific
Like,
benefit of, sorry,
no, no, continue.
specific utility of mapping. Socionics is a system. Like I often don't even like when I hear people call sociotype a personality type. And I've encountered before people who say like, oh, okay, well, sociotype isn't a personality type, or it's a theory of type relations, and it's a theory of information metabolism, or different. I've heard people say different things, but the more that I mull it over, the more I end up agreeing with them, because ultimately, I think that people tie personality type as a concept too much to behavior. And I think that uh, the more that uh, the more that I the more that I witness people, and the more that uh, I see otherwise people that I know are of different types interact with each other, I think that the interaction aspect of it is the practical application of information metabolism. You're actually watching the thing play out. So you have this system about like you have this system about objects and motion and force and all those things. Physics is this really crazy cool concept to map all of these concepts. Well, when you watch football or when you watch racing or something like that, you're watching the practical. Like, you're watching it happen in motion. When you go on a plane flight, you're watching physics and chemistry engage. You're watching the ongoing practice of testing that theory happen again. Yeah, we're still pretty sure it's fucking true because look, you're actually in Alaska now. You were in Florida, now you're in Alaska because we measured out that if we make these materials and we put them all together in this way, that we can put you in a craft and shoot you through the air in 12 hours or whatever. Yeah. Like,
well, in some sense, you can make the physics connection to any pedestrian example. But yeah, I would agree that like something like that, there are great consequences if the theories around physics were not maintained to be true. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. But I'm not even saying it from a consequentialist light. I'm saying that this is the point. If you have this thing, well, this is the point of actually doing that. If you're not theory for the sake of theory, but theory for the sake of something that's actually occurring in front of you, that you can go, hold on, we have to the otherwise uninformed, hey, this is what's happening here. So that you don't have to go and fucking figure out the math of how to make an airplane or how to build whatever mechanism that otherwise there would be no way of you knowing other than being a genius and being able to figure it out all for yourself. But here you go. When you put these types together, notice how they have these interactions. Notice that they will say this thing back and forth. Notice how they won't say that thing back and forth. Notice how when this guy enters the room and he starts bringing forward this information, this person jives with it and that person is put off by it. Whatever application the person might have for it, it is taking note of whatever else you're otherwise identifying, whatever else you're observing.
I want to rewind for a second. Originally you were saying that basically you don't want to be like there's a one-to-one between personality and sociotype. Sociotype's just the information metabolism. Personality is going into other bounds, so to speak, or there's more to personality than just how you metabolize information. You'd basically say that's your effective stance.
I mean, what we understand personality to be is
what do we mean? What do you mean when you say personality?
Like personality, people mean a lot of things when they mean personality. They mean like the vibe that a person has. They mean like basically, depending upon who you ask and how people apply it, how intelligent a person is. And then furthermore, what clique are you part of? And then furthermore, like are you confident or not? Or furthermore, does this person have any kind of mental disorders? Does this person have any kind of depression? Does this person have any kind of anxiety? Is this person artistic? Are they expressive of that they have an influence or not? A lot of things, there is no clear cut there's no clear-cut definition of what personality is as far as people apply it. Because colloquially, as people talk about personality, they mean all sorts of shit.
If I can interject for a moment, if we are modeling how a person metabolizes information, how different people metabolize information differently, we could suspect that depending on how you metabolize information, that may have implications into some of those domains you just ran through.
One would think so, yes.
Yeah. Now, how you did give some good examples there, though. There could be like, you're in this sort of artistic clique, and there's like an association there, or like you're a part of this culture effectively that has an image, and it might be assumed that someone is, maybe they're fucking into Dungeons and Dragons and all this like weird shit, and they're like, oh, that's
I'm just saying, like,
that person's
okay,
an
you take an
ESFP.
LSI and you take an LSE, you have a football team, you know, you have a football team, and then you have the LSI on the team and you have the LSE on the team, right? Do you think which one of these guys you think is going to be the mouth runner? Like you got a fucking LIE on the team, right? You got an LIE, you got an LSI. Which guy do you think is going to be the mouth runner? Which guy?
I would
Which one
assume
do you think is going to be the strong silent type? That would otherwise be boiled down to personality. But otherwise, if you're coming from a different school of thought with regards to what personality is, people would otherwise look at both of those people and be like, yeah, these guys are alpha. These guys are both alpha.
yeah.
Maybe they'd be like, well, the fucking IEE is alpha and the LSI is sigma. He's a sigma.
Well, they would probably have the colloquial introvert versus extrovert thing in mind, even on a colloquial level, not necessarily in a Jungian sense. Just general extrovert introvert associations would probably be applied, even if both are seen as quote unquote alpha or whatever.
I mean, you've now already done the logical next step, which is, well, hold on. Yes, they're both alpha, but we have another dichotomy. This one's an extrovert and this one's an introvert. To make more levels of zoom to say, well, if we're going to group people together, we need to make more and more and more and more things, because otherwise we must take account for that there are differences between these people.
Yeah, well, even that
and
one.
Note, and
that
note
one,
the similarities that they have to other types, other people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even that one gets weird.
There's a strong silent type in the artist guild.
Because you could have like, someone who's a yapper, quote unquote, and you could say they're socially gregarious, but there are some ideas that would be presented where someone might argue that, the social, how much of basically a social butterfly you are, whether or not that's the same as how you metabolize extroverted information versus introverted information. Like there's a line there where some people could make like a case that, whoa, an extroverted thinking lead is not necessarily going to be a yapper or whatever. But I mean, whatever. Depends
They're
on
not necessarily like.
Yeah, and that's why I said colloquial introvert extrovert, because there's more nuances there that you could unpack if you wanted to make it all about, I don't know, if you wanted to go the Jungian route and be like your relationship between the object or subject or whatever the fuck. Depends what direction. You should read, or people in general, I think would be curious to read Augusta's view of introvert extrovert, which apparently is somewhat different than how Jung conceptualized it. But like you said, she's mapping communication, so she's kind of approaching it differently.
Yeah. How do you tell me your thoughts on? You've already talked a bit on. You've already made some videos on how you think she views introvert extrovert.
Have I recently?
You did, like, it was like a month ago or something like that.
I'm fairly undecided on that. I mean, I think like if I was, part of me is like I should just go into like regular psychology and just like use the shit that people are most familiar with, because that casts the widest net. There's a part of me that's sort of oriented that way, where I'm like, it's kind of like when you look at someone like, when Jack Aaron does that thing with the J and P letter of like the 4-letter code, and he'll be like, why would an introverted perception lead be a judger? Because they're leading with an irrational function or something like that. Like those are cases where you confuse the general public because
doesn't fucking matter. It's a naming convention, right?
Yeah, they have a naming convention that's related to how they normally see things. Sorry, this is just tangentially related, but what I was trying to get at was basically like there's general psychological terms that have a definition that the academic sphere and the general public is more familiar with, and I would almost be tempted to go in that direction just because like there's already there's already a narrative being painted in that direction with a lot of momentum behind it, and hopping on that train would be more efficient than building your own model from scratch.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think that, and I think we've already talked about this extensively.
I mean, this is like the most TE argument I've ever made, probably. But
I mean, perhaps there's not there's only there are only limitations to be had if you stubbornly go forward without trying to build some kind of semantic bridge.
yes,
Whenever I end up talking with people, and I've been staying away from like the Discord shit for a minute. It's too fucking much. People are too stuck in what they're doing. I'm usually attempting to try to bridge that gap and being like, okay, well, we're talking about this system.
Yes.
And we're talking about what the system is supposed to be, not whatever you're working with over here. Okay, so whatever you are working with, what are you working with over here? What do you mean when you say this? What do you mean when you say this? Which is puts people in like a skittish territory, because I feel like people are used to being less invested in the linguistic accuracy, or the fleshing out the semantic meaning, trying to get rid of the semantic noise of systems, and the inherent gap between trying to communicate concepts between people and getting more stuck in the vibe, basically, or whatever. And also with that, whatever group that they're in and what the vibe of that group is. And the way that is, and everyone knows it, once you go into a community of whatever, and you listen to those people talk about, well, fucking TI people be like, fuck, SCE, TI polar be like, SCE be like, fucking FE people be like, fuck, FI, fucking, these types are static. They're static people. These people, I can tell that they're processed. This person's processed. They're definitely resolved. There's no fucking right away. What are you talking about? What the fuck do you mean? What are you talking about? You fucking little click with your fucking vibes about what the fuck you think of it.
Not having the semantic bridge is a problem. Like
if three people say archetypes, get your fucking ass out of here.
If three people say red, and those three people mean a different color when they say the term red, there's an issue on a communication level. You can no longer transfer information in a discussion or argument.
We get the same problem when it comes to like different political tribes, where this one over here is using this language. When they use these words, they're dog whistling this fucking concept that they otherwise gatekeep and malinform their fucking their followers to, as opposed to this other group over there that does the same thing but in a different direction with their malinformation of what words mean. It's a general is sometimes malicious, and other times, and I think most of the time, lacking in ability to otherwise see the manipulation of language. I think that's more commonly the case. I think more commonly people are otherwise well-meaning but don't see that there's one or two rotten eggs around them that's being fucky, basically. But
interesting. Can I backstep a bit back to the difference between sociotype and personality? This is the other sort of issue I feel like you run into when you're modeling intertype compatibility, is the compatibility between two different people. We can say, like, at least in my own anecdotal experience, if I assume the premise that I'm an SEE, yes, there are people like yourself that I get along with well that happen to be ILI, we'll say. But then there's probably other ILIs that I don't get along with at all. And then
I know loads of SEEs that don't.
There's probably people from other quadras that I really get along with well as well. So you start to sort of go, okay, like what am I mapping here? This intertype relationship theory thing exactly. I know you've probably would point to it being like, oh, you can receive information, you know what the other person means more easily. Maybe you would go in that direction.
Basically,
anecdotally, I don't know if I wouldn't be confident saying that that's what I've observed, but
okay.
I mean, I'm open to the possibility. I feel like I have pretty smooth communication with you, but again, I don't know if that's a product of sociotype or not.
It might not. I don't think it otherwise is. But I don't necessarily say that. I wouldn't necessarily use the verbiage like have smooth communication. I mean, to some extent, I would say that more than anything and more than anything in general will always be the case that I mean we're both like white dudes, straight white males. That's the reason. We're just straight white males. That's it.
Right.
We're more or less like dudes with a probably pretty similar outlook. They're pretty similar interests. And again, similar outlook, similar interests, similar stances, probably more than anything. But otherwise, it just doesn't mean that they. Like I've known plenty of SEEs, and at least I can tell you that like I know that they're gonna ask certain questions, and I know that I'm going to answer them in a way that they're like, okay, well, I'm satisfied that you answered the question in the format that I want. That doesn't mean I trust you now. I'm watching you. Shit. Okay. All right. Well, fine. But yeah.
But it sounds like in that example, you feel like there's an effective or efficient transfer of data.
Yeah, like there isn't a you don't need a converter. Like
that's what I mean by smooth communication.
Basically. What like do you not get that with ILI? Like I guess
I said I get that with you. I'm not confident like I would have smoother communication with you versus Eric or whatever, even though different quadra. Like I'm the type of person, like I feel like I'm fairly confident that I can create, that sort of efficient communication with people.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect as well. I do think sometimes like the biggest issue is when you get into like a semantic sort of issue with someone, which I'd have to track that more closely to see how often that happens and with which types of people that happens with.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I have communications issues with people when they bring extra shit into the equation. Like, let's say we're talking about something psychological and then they start saying like, it's just important that you love yourself or something, like, what I mean? They're bringing other shit in there. And I'm like, this is not even what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to define what things are. And you're bringing in like some sort of sentiment that arose in you, I guess, tangentially related. It's stuff like that where I'm like struggling to like communicate with someone.
Yeah.
But I don't know what we would categorize that exactly as. But
to love yourself. I mean, that does sound like some alpha shit, but not necessarily. But yeah, I mean it's off color.
Yeah, well,
it's off color. Stay on fucking topic.
Yeah, exactly. Like if it's unresponsive to,
well, it's like it otherwise presumes that I think that like Okay, so you're talking to me about personality type. So like I assume you have some kind of struggles with people, but like what's more important is that at the end of the day, like you love yourself because that's what's actually going to give you results.
I'm not trying to have like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to get a motivational speech out of this person. Like
I care about you,
I
Curtis.
want to define the fucking what we're talking about.
Curtis, I just want you to know that I appreciate you.
That's great. Awesome. I almost struggled there. I was like, how do I do that again? Like, I think I haven't done this in a while. I used to have that problem when I was a kid. I would try to draw a
I
heart
don't
and it
like
would always look terrible. That looks like
people
a
do this
peach.
shit all the time, and it looks like yeah, it's just not a
It's
good
like a
heart.
peach.
It looks like a it's not a Cheshire cat face. It's the Grinch face, actually. When the Grinch gets really grinchy and has like a smile that goes from ear to ear, his face takes this shape.
Oh yeah, when he's like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
dude,
yeah.
The Grinch is fucking amazing.
No, it is off topic. It I would think that that would have something to do with SI or with SENI.
Oh yeah, well, basically wanting to stay laser focused on the thing,
So,
the main thing.
I mean, it's like get your fucking don't try to massage me. I don't need your fucking I don't need you to SI me. I'm good. Thanks. I'm good.
Yeah,
Thanks, I'm
they're
comfy. I
immediately
didn't need
assuming.
your comfort. I was comfy over here. But thanks. It's not appreciated, but it's also unneeded. But I didn't, you know,
Yeah, yeah. It's like trying to bring things into the personal territory, and it's like the
I
wrong
didn't
place,
need a
wrong
letter
time.
opener, but I have a letter opener now. Thanks.
Yeah, it's like instead of talking about the thing, they want to. I mean, on some level, like if I wanted to steel man their position, like they're basically going like, you know, why are we even talking about this? Like, oh, you know, what it's really about is, you know, this person's pain or something or whatever the
Well,
fuck. And
that's what I'm getting
yeah,
at. That's what I'm
like
suggesting.
I get why someone would, you know, maybe go there. Um,
That you're bringing this information to me indicates that you might otherwise want this kind of information. Here you go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You think that?
Why do you think to go that direction? That just seems an off-color direction to go,
You think that's
right?
like an extroverted intuition kind of leap?
Well, I mean, I think that it's some kind of, I think that it's probably some kind of SI thing.
SIE.
I would think that would probably be some SI shit. Some kind of, maybe not. Don't know. Could be wrong. What would otherwise tell? I mean, we're working with a hypothetical example.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, we gotta tell you what it's all about. It's all about brain scan types. That's our new thing.
Yeah.
It's all about brain scans. No, I
Some
mean
brain
obviously that
scans.
gets
Dude,
extremely complicated.
I just want my brain scanned, dude.
Not Dario Nardi, because I'm pretty sure the problem there is they always start with like a weird premise. Like they're like, we started tracking based on, you know, these sample size of people that were type using the Kiersey type indicator or something. It's like, well, I
Anytime,
don't
yeah,
know.
anytime you start with, we've already typed them. It's like,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah. And I'm like, well,
So it was decided.
your data is corrupted, my G.
Yeah. I need to get,
You
you can
started with a
still hear
questionable
me.
premise
I'm gonna go
already.
get some coffee. I'm just gonna be honest. This is very rude, but yeah, I'm going to get some coffee, but I can still hear you. Week. Walk away from me, you son of a bitch. Can't even hear me right now, can you?
Oh.
It's a real lack, right? Of other
I
streams.
left,
Like it's
I
a
left
very
the room.
Straussian thing. People who pee on stream.
I literally just went and did that. But yeah. It was actually good timing because I had to piss.
Yeah. Where were we?
We were talking about brain scans.
Brain scans, right? Yeah. Once you start with we've already typed them.
Yeah. You've already got false categories, basically. Well, more complicated than that, but there's like a assumed premise there.
I mean,
but what you should really do, not just with brain scans, but I would think like building a model in general, is you actually start with the empirical observations, and then you can start
I would hope.
And then you start to create categories once you have enough empirics and patterns that naturally occurred. That would be the ideal, in my opinion. Not what you start with the categories and then build to validate the categories you started with.
I mean, that's usually what I end up running into is like people who are otherwise doing exactly like they're taking the thing and they're now taking the concept and going, well, this is how I understand it to be. And if you're going to do that, you need to have the intellectual integrity to be very speculative with like, okay, well, this is as the theory is written, so by the word of what the theory was, that this should hypothetically be and shit, unless otherwise. And you need to be willing to take back all those steps and adjust all of those priors, which I don't think that generally people are.
It's like when you say like this type's a process type, and then you need to come up with a reason why that would be the case and sort of back engineer it to make that make sense. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't make sense, but like that's one of those things where it's like you started with the modeling and then you work to basically come up with a story for why that was the case.
Well, I mean, like, okay, one of the things that we come to a lot is why 16, why 8, why this and the other, why this structure, why if you are a dom, then you have to be either a this or that, has your other one. That's a nice Jungian rule of like, well, if you're this, then it would have to be the case that otherwise you would be this thing. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense. Otherwise, nothing would make any sense. Okay, well, that presumes your sense upon reality, which good that you would have the hubris to presume your sense upon to reality rather than take reality as it comes. When it comes to like actually taking the model and treating it scientifically, one would have to be open to like, is there otherwise a reason that I can be satisfactorily dominant or lead in a function and then not creative in one of these two other things? Is it possible for me to be creative in a perception function and also dominant in another perception function?
This is basically what I was arguing with you the other night about, I think. We're not arguing, we were basically discussing it. Is that, it's assumed that if you have this element operating in this capacity within you, then it's assumed that this other part would be in this position acting in this way. But it's sort of assumed, like you see the first two parts and then you assume the other four parts without actually empirically validating that other part. It's just sort of assumed based on the model and the mechanics of the model, or that those were correct to begin with, rather than maybe seeing like, well, this person who fits every, conception of an extrovert intuition lead isn't necessarily meeting the criteria of what it would mean to be SI suggestive or whatever. Now, in those cases, you can always argue type and be like, well, maybe they're actually just demonstrative extrovert intuition. The reason they don't fit is because they're a fucking LIE and you're just seeing their demonstrative function. Like, that's where it gets funny because, like, you can always argue that position anytime someone doesn't, match all the, quote unquote quadra values as it pertains to information element positions.
It certainly gets fucky once the person is willing to make positive claims. Like,
example,
it's one thing for it's one thing for me to be a typology enjoyer or a typology critic and go, okay, the bounds of this thing as I understand them are over here, and the bounds of this other thing are over here. And then I see someone who's a practitioner, an expert, and that person says, well, that person's this type over here. I'm looking at it and I'm like, no, you're obviously wrong, because the bounds of that type are over here. And if you are to actually respect the process as that's supposed to be, then they can't be that type that you say they are. They would have to be this thing over here, because they're having that relationship with that information, right? They're not doing this other thing with the information that you say they are. If they were that type, they would be doing this other thing.
Now, this is the reason
what you're doing with that information is this, and have the person go, well, it's because they are a dominant subtype. Like, okay, well, it's very convenient for you to positively make the claim they are this thing, and it's because this other thing. Versus,
you're creating a patch to basically explain away what the discrepancy is, rather than going
or otherwise having. You also get to run into the situation of the otherwise discrepancy again is the fucking vibe, where you get you dealing in sociotype, and then you end up running into what otherwise is a glorified vibe typist that's giving people a sociotype or whatever.
One more note. A lot of people use model A, like the function positions, but if their definitions of the actual information elements are different, then their inputs and outputs are going to be different in the system. So like if what you understand to be SI is not what someone else understands to be SI, maybe you agree on what extroverted intuition is or something, but so you're going to have some things where it's like, I observe this from the person, but I don't observe that. It starts to get fucky with the model, and you end up with people who are both model A practitioners from a position standpoint, but because they have different definitions or an idea of what the element actually is, then, basically the image of the type ends up being effectively different, despite them still using the skeleton of model A from a positional standpoint.
Right. That's not even necessarily no, I won't say that, but otherwise, when it comes to that, you're dealing with a person that is otherwise steeped in the typology community and can get. It's difficult for people to learn typology from Frank James or Joyce Meng, and then never have that influence any of their typology going forward. So that person goes no, I don't do MBTI anymore. Now I do socionics. I verily guarantee you that most people are not able to take that influence that they've already understood that type vibrationally to be, and not have that archetype further influence.
Yeah, they aren't erasing the whiteboard before going on to doing.
That's adjusting bias.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They're influencing ways.
I think that otherwise people are just bad at the capability of doing that. I think it's an uncommon trait for people to have to actually be able to do that.
No, I would agree. They're holding on to basically prior archetypes they already have in their head and just sort of plugging that into the model A skeleton, and then whatever.
Basically.
I was going to ask you, do you, let's say with extroverted thinking or extroverted logic, do you see it as having any sort of social interfacing aspect to it? Or do you see that do you see that as like a macro extroverted judgment category, or do you think that that's still, if it's social, it would basically fall into like more of a ethics category? Or
What do you mean by social?
When you start basically, anytime you're engaged in any type of social masking, I suppose, where you're essentially
Yep.
making moves in relation to the social dynamics around you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Do you believe that extrovert thinking is capable of that, and the effectively, like, I don't know how you see it. Also comes down to how you see the polar function. Like, some people see epipolar as like basically autistic, and then some people see it as, well, it's, you know, it's still a
No, TI-DOM is way more TI-DOM is way more autistic, but I mean, I guess the question then becomes, when you say TE, do you mean TE types? Do you mean
yeah, hold on, let me specify. We'll say, and I know you can always point to the role function FE and do some stuff there, and potentially depending on how you see the superego as a whole. But we'll just say TE in the ego block. We'll play with that to begin with.
In the dominant position.
Well, it doesn't. We can also play with it in the creative slot as well. We can look at both.
Everything that one does necessarily, everything that one does in relation to other people, as well as everything that one does not do in relation to other people, everything is interconnected. Your relationship to how you do or do not do this thing impacts the relationship that you have with other people, which impacts you socially. Your willingness to speak up or not speak up impacts you socially, impacts what happens to you in life, impacts the people that become attracted to you, become repulsed to you, impacts the situations that you end up experiencing or not experience, the opportunities that do not and do and do not open up for you. Everything is connected to everything. So in a woohoo way, yes.
I thought you were gonna go in the other direction, where you go like, well, you're, depending on what position your extroverted logic is in, necessitates, you know, where the position of your extroverted ethics would be. So it's sort of, there's an implied relationship there to how you will handle that type of information anyways.
I mean, they're both their own thing. Like, everyone necessarily does both of them.
Yes, exactly. But they would have but the relationship they have to one would imply a relationship to the other, or positionally.
I mean, yeah.
If you have the T in the leading position, at least by the model's idea, then it implies the relationship to extroverted ethics that would be in the role position. Just like the parts of the ninja. If this part's here, it implies this part would be operating in this capacity.
The creative position with TE, if you go by the theory, suggests that, dictates that the person will have a stubborn but quiet and avoided relationship with the frame of extroverted ethics, which is less about social and is more about like the law of social, the code of social.
Do you see it in any way
like
as a
FI interplays as well? What's up?
So you don't see it as a blind spot?
No.
Right. This is where you would differ from, say, Jack Aaron. Is you would not view that the vulnerable as a blind spot.
No, I don't. I definitely don't think the vulnerable is a blind. I think that in some ways, like I think that the role function is more blind in a way, because it's like, I've heard the role, like Eric calls it, the most unconscious function. And generally, the relationship that people tend to have with the role function is one where they're otherwise not paying attention to it, and then suddenly they're aware of it, and it's suddenly this stressful fucking thing that they're fucking suddenly aware of it, and it's like, what the fuck? There's fucking like,
That's
and I'm
basically
the thing. What the fuck?
that's
Okay,
basically
now I can't think about anything else. That there's fucking
yeah,
as
yeah.
nothing else I can fucking think about now. I have
That's
a
like
headache.
the
Yeah,
BB demon function, if you wanted to make that
basically,
clear.
yeah. Yeah.
Which I've played with the idea that he, even though like say what you will about it, like in some ways that modeling does make some intuitive sense.
Yeah. I mean I'd
As, as
have to pull
metaphoric
it
as it
apart.
might be, but
I have noticed that, and we've talked about this before. I've noticed that I think that the BB model and the socio model seem to have some kind of overlap because I, the different functions, like they're talking about something similar. They're talking about something similar when it comes to the way that he describes some of these and the way that they end up playing out in intertype. Like it makes sense to me that the polar function is called the trickster function
yeah.
because when people get particularly fucky with their polar function, they tend to act a fool intentionally, so that it's almost like a protest.
Mm,
um
right. So you feel do you have that experience when you interact with like EIEs basically,
with EIE. uh
which would be like
yeah.
your supervisor?
Although I would have to actually think about how they do it. um I would have to think about how they actually do it, and I would need to sit on it. uh
The demon function and the role function do, at least on their face, seem like conceptually a bit different.
yeah,
Because
probably.
like because what we were saying, like demon in some sense, you could imagine that being is almost less conscious in a sense. Like if we're following like the idea that okay, if you're an extroverted intuition lead, that's the same type of function. An extroverted irrational function is extroverted sensing. It's like a light switch. If one is on, in some sense, the other one ends up being off. So you can imagine it being like sort of an unconscious. It has to have like an unconscious manifestation
Basically.
when that demon function arises, which is a bit different than how some people would understand the role function. But I don't know. You'd have to look at it. It might even depend on if you're looking at a rational or irrational function, because the role idea seems to work okay with like FE role. It seems to kind of make sense there.
No, like
And then maybe
when it comes to um like Teacup talks about this a lot with her relationship with FI Dom and TI role and TE suggestive, and that she kind of wants to be like filter fed information or whatever. And she just kind of wants to engage with it at her own pace and just take it in and take more in and take more in. But if I actually sit her down and be like, okay, talk to me directly about, how what this means, what that means, why does this work this way, why does this work that way, no, in more detail, under more script. No, it's not just enough that this is good advice. Why is that good advice? What is the thing that affects the thing that makes that good advice? She's like,
right,
stop it. Like I'd have to think about it, right? Okay, to the extent that like now I'm on about it. Now I can't stop thinking about it. I'd have to sit up all
mm.
night. I'll be up till 5 a.m. thinking about it.
Do you think that
And then it
example
tends
works
to be the
better
kind
with
of
the
thing
judgment
that
function?
maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I will say that like it tends to be. I noticed this with FE Dom as well. Like it's like the kind of thing like they want to. It's the kind of thing that you like you can do, but you don't want to do, and you kind of want to like do all the homework right now so that you never have to do it again. So you can just like situationally like, here you go. Don't ask me how it works. Take it. Don't. Fuck you. Like, just take it. Don't think about it. I would have to, if I were to explain it, I'd have to go and do it all again and figure it out all again. Or at least that's what it seems to be with her and TE in that position.
Have you ever heard of the idea
Or like,
of the role function being like an area of fears? You ever heard that notion before?
not put it like that, no.
I don't know if it would work, but I could kind of imagine it. I mean, again, like some of these examples seem to work better with rational functions almost, just because maybe judgment's just more clearly to articulate sort of the issue there. But yeah. I mean, let's say with your SI, like, do you freak out about SI stuff all of a sudden?
If it suddenly happens, yes. Like if I'm like this actually, I used to chat a lot with an IEI. He doesn't have a Discord anymore. I deleted his Discord, but he's actually he's a lot younger too. But the way he put it, like he got a cold, and he was talking to me, and he's like, John, like, you ever notice like you get a cold and you're suddenly aware like, holy shit, I have a nose. Fuck that. And I heard it and I'm like, yeah, actually, like, um, that you even have a body otherwise is like only otherwise noticed if it's a problem. If it's a problem that's snowballing right now, it's hard to handle. But if it's otherwise tended to, like, I could do it, but it's like it's just is annoying and stressful that I'm thinking about this. A waste of my time. It's a waste of my time to think about this. It's a waste of my time to be acting on this. It's otherwise ruining the quality of my life that I'm having to do this or think about this. So it's like, it's weird, and I don't really. I actually do think that I get finicky on if I was to say that I quote unquote believe that socionics is real. But there are certain things that I look at with ILI and I go like, I'd be hard pressed to otherwise argue that that's not what I'm experiencing. So when it comes to SI being in that position, I can't really say that about, I don't think, anything else. Nothing else quite does that. Like shit that otherwise people are like, oh, it's okay, you just do that. I'm like, just don't even fucking talk. I don't even want you to talk to me like that. Don't talk to me. No, it's okay. Like, people get sick. Like, it's okay. Like, this will make you comfortable. I'm like, I don't want to be comfortable. I don't want to think about this. Just stop. Like, it's like you might as well, like, it's like it's patronizing.
My relationship to that sort of stuff is more, it sounds like you're getting like more irritated by like specific things, like with the nose example. In my case, it would probably be more like I would get annoyed with like I feel tired or like I feel like some sense of inertia, and I'm like, I wish I didn't have that problem, sort of thing. That's more like what I would experience rather than being something super specific. It might probably be just a general like I feel tired, so I'm going to throw more caffeine at the problem or something.
Well, I mean,
But
Are
that
you
can be
are
that can be a
you
lot of that can be a lot of things. Like that can be diet related, that can be health related. Like there's a lot of things there. Um,
well, it's like my sister's an ESE, and um it's a I rather like her actually, but there's this finicky thing where like I have a situation and of any description in general, and she'll just naturally start talking to me in this tone, and I'll be like, okay, I know that would make other people comfortable. But you talking to me in that tone otherwise infuriates me. Like,
mm,
and sometimes she'll just intentionally just talk to me like this, and I'll be like, okay, I got that. That works for me. I got it. I picked that up really easily, right? If
yeah.
I like, I can't get into an argument with her and piece out. Um, I just have to take it as it comes and just and take it for what it is, which I think is generally an alpha value, quote unquote. Although I get fucky about people talking about the quadras having values or philosophies or whatever words you want to fucking put to it. Stinger was like, okay, just vibe with whatever you're saying right now. I
Yeah.
can't I can do this with other types. I can't do it with ESE. I can't do it with EIE either. Okay. Otherwise, you could like you can do it with TE polar, and you'll get a different reaction. I think if you get them on like that particular detail doesn't make sense. This particular detail doesn't. Well, you think this, and you also think this, and you also think this. That doesn't add up. Yeah, tell me about that again. Rethink that. All right, it's not going to work. It's just going to lead to it's just going to lead to a bad interaction. Like otherwise, in a situation where uh, the person would otherwise be like, okay, you're actively trying to insult me, which I think perhaps suggests like if they were to do this to someone, it would be an insult to them, but maybe not.
So you get annoyed when someone basically starts assuming some like caretaker role almost around you or bringing that sort of energy.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I I know like someone at work returned. They're not like in my company, but they were gone for a while because they were dealing with I guess some seizures or something. And I was super curious about it. So like I saw them, I was like, "Oh, good to see you." I'm like, "I heard you had a health scare," and um, I definitely get a kick out of like I'm like, "Oh, like I've heard some people who have seizures, they find if they run like a keto diet, their seizures go away." Like there's just there's different experiments you can run on the body, and it's interesting to see how they affect your nervous system. So I'd start like talking to them about that. Now, the funny thing about that is I could probably bother some people because it's to some people that's a very like personal thing, and like they could get maybe feel like I'm imposing or something on something that's like sensitive, especially if there's a lot of emotions involved. But I'm like curious, almost like a scientist. I'm like, oh, what would happen if we change this input and we get a different output, sort of thing. And that's how
Well,
I engage.
if you were to say this to me in real time and not have it be an organic situation, I would probably start naturally building off of it.
Yeah, yeah, and that might be like sort of the exchange of information that would be indicative of our intertype relation or whatever.
I
That's
think so.
possible.
Yeah,
That is
I
that
think
that
so.
is that makes some sense. Um, yeah.
Whereas just when it comes to that, like if I were to talk to an LSE, I don't think that an LSE would start talking about that.
Mhm.
I would if I were talking to an LSE, I would think instinctively they would start being like, "Oh, you went through this. Yeah, no, would you do anything about that?" Like, yeah, I do a mixture of like tea and honey, specifically this kind. Actually, you can get it at the store. Like, no, you don't want to get it from there. You get it from this store. Like, you'll get it a better deal there. Yeah, but don't. It'll give you a stomach ache. Like, I can handle that from them.
I'd be like, why don't you just use table sugar? No, I'm just
Snort it. Snort table sugar. Right?
I want to see. I just want to see a chemistry set. Yeah. Why don't we? John and I are going to do future recordings together. This was just sort of a round one.
Is that it? Is that all we got?
We got an hour and 15. We'll cut it there.
What the fuck?
We'll do more in the future. I'm tired.
What the fuck? Bullshit. We didn't talk about shit.
We're gonna do more in the future. We're gonna talk off air too, because I'm tired, but we'll do more. Anyways, thanks for coming on, John. It's great talking.